Yeah, it's a fun time to be alive, and so many things that have been happening for the last, oh gosh, ever since 2012. 2012, there's been so many things happen. Some things are secretly happening behind the scenes, and those are people who have following the Q operation and trying to make sense of little things that happen in the media that don't happen in the media, and the things that we find out that when we start digging down rabbit holes. Oh, there's been so many things happen. And it's time for the lions to get up off the couch. Hi there, Neil here, the Twisted Light Worker. Yeah, here we are, approaching the middle of 2026. So much has been going on. July is just around the corner, and we're going to see some action things that happened for the last 3 weeks of June, but there's lots more that's has to be done. And part of that goes right back to who we are on the inside. You know, God hath not given the spirit of fear, but of love and of power and sound mind. He gave us all three of those gifts in abundance, and it's totally and entirely up to you and I to build a pathway to those gifts and activate those gifts in our own lives. It's not something that can be just done by reading scripture. It's not something that can be done by going to church. It's developing that connection to that inner spark of the divine that's inside you. It's inside me, and it's inside every human being on the earth plane, whatever this plane may be. You see, awakening is a belief-shattering, confusing journey that rips you apart, leaving you face to face with your authentic self. Clarity of who you really are is the resulting, forever expanding glory. It's truly, truly ineffable. So now it's been like 330 videos that I've created since the beginning of the pandemic. And I've had two missions in mind with all the videos that I've created. One is to proof of white hat actions, because I knew intuitively that the white hats were busy, and it's time for the shift in consciousness to happen in all of humanity, not just individuals here and there, but all of humanity. We're all making a big leap. And part of that leap is going to be causing everyone to get up off the couch and wake up that lion within. Because that's the second thing that I've done with my videos since the beginning. Right from the very beginning, the first 4 videos that I created way back. The fourth one was all about waking up the lion. The fourth one was all about waking up the lion. The first 3 were exposing the corruption, and those 4 videos knocked me off of every platform that I was on, just like so many other truthers out there. We were silenced. I lost 30,000 followers, and I've had to start all over again. And I've taken a different approach than most, because I get a little bit animated. I have a little bit of fun, because life is supposed to be fun. We're here to be co-creating with Creative Source. And Creative Source is right inside that spark of the divine that's inside each and every single cell of your body and my body. And with 70 to 100 trillion cells in our body, that means we have a deep connection to Source, right to God. That deep connection is within. I'm not afraid to promote other people too. One of the ones that brought the truther movement to a major push forward was Derek Johnson, when he exposed all of the executive orders and what was really going on with a continuity of government and devolution. And he brought together some very important facts to show us through the law of war manual, military law, and Trump's executive orders just what this military operation is going. And you know what? People have forgotten. We're still operating under continuity of government. It's still in effect. And 100 plus countries that are all involved in taking down the cabal. But we're approaching an interesting point. And that most important part of this point is to realize that those of us who know what's going on, it's time for us to activate our efforts and put them into greater use to make this world a better place. I love to see the Generation Z, or whatever they call them, the young today, they're starting to realize that getting up off the couch is going to make a difference. Putting down the phone and stop playing video games is going to make a difference. There's a huge number of the young are starting to get involved in the trades, because we have lost so many jobs to overseas. It was so stupid. We shut down factories and moved them elsewhere, so that what happens? Our own countries fall apart when we're not creating our own goods and actually rolling up our sleeves and doing things. And I love to see the youth actively taking charge, and more of them are getting into trades and things of that nature, because they realize that creating is fun. You see, that spark of the divine that's inside us, that makes us co-creators with the universal consciousness, or God. And that means every effort that we do in our life should be not just for pleasure. What a bunch of nonsense. We've been programmed to believe that life's supposed to be just pleasure. No, we are creators. And we are the ones responsible for creating this heaven on earth. And it's up to us to roll up our sleeves and wake up the lions and do lion shit. And do lion shit. People don't want to do that. People don't want to get up off the couch and actually do lion shit, because they think if they point their finger at somebody else will get it all done. But we got to remember, I've said this many times, that when we point our finger at somebody else, there's 3 fingers pointing back at us. We're the ones that we're waiting for. We are the ones that we're waiting for. The collective consciousness is rising. And it's exciting to know that more people are starting to return to that life of sacred. Returning to the sacred. I recently been watching a lot of videos that are done through Promethean Action. Now, I don't mind promoting other people, because way back I promoted Derek Johnson, and now it's a different time in this taking down of the cabal. The last of the cornerstones are being done. They're done down, taken down. I love my grammar. Anyways, I'm going to share a video with Mike Steger from Promethean Action. Here you go.
For over 2,000 years, our civilization has survived because we knew the difference between the shadows and the substance. The pundits and the politicians today measure the shadows. They like this shadow and not that one. The only way to escape this kind of cultural insanity is to leave the cave entirely, to once again place real value on the substance. Laura Trump recently asked the president why he didn't wait until after the midterms to launch a war against Iran. He said there will always be elections. You can't do anything substantial if you're always worried about an election. He said, quote, "I don't view that window. I view it. I have to do what's right." Sounds simple, but that distinction makes all the difference. That's the way out of the cave. Trump didn't just engage Iran, he aggressively forced the issue. He risked it all. His presidency, the midterms, the movement, he tells Netanyahu to screw off because this isn't a game. This isn't shadow play. It's not what looks good for the camera or for the election, because Iran will be solved in the coming weeks. Iran is surrounded. And as Barbara Boyd exposed on Monday, creatures like Tony Blair and Larry Ellison, they thought they could trap Trump in another war in Asia. They thought they could drag us into another forever war. But these creatures live in the shadow. They don't see the sunlight. The bigger question is how this kind of leadership changes American culture, how it revives the quality of American identity that won the revolution 250 years ago. Because culture is not shaped by the cave dwellers. It's shaped by those who face the uncertainty of the sunlight. It's shaped by a higher power, a power only accessible to those who sacrifice and who grunt and sweat for a higher principle. This is the unwritten law of our civilization, that the power to create is transcendental to its definition. That's why the academics always get it wrong. In this video, I'm going to lay out the unseen Trump effect, the deeper impact President Trump is having on America, the world, and our culture. It's not flashy, but it holds up a mirror and asks, what problem did you solve today? It's the kind of grind that wins revolutions, and the grassroots leaders of America, they knew it 250 years ago. I'm Mike Steger, and I've been fighting against these cave dwellers for over 20 years. And this is why we founded Promethean Action, because it's not the celebrities and politicians that shape the culture. A culture is shaped by the courage of its people. As the old saying goes, we get the leaders we deserve. So if you want to help create a new generation of leaders, then sign up for our newsletter in the description, become a paying member, and help us get to 50,000 subscribers by clicking like and subscribe. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has been transformed by this kind of leadership. He spoke at the Reagan Library last week and said this: "We celebrate 250 years of the American story, but milestones of this magnitude demand more than ceremony. They ask something of us. One thing that has made our republic great," Reagan said, "is that we don't hide from our mistakes. We learn from them. Then we go on and do things better than we did before." This is the same approach President Trump has brought to bear in America today. Whether it's the reflecting pool, the fountains in D.C., or the nuclear weapons in Iran and the war in Ukraine. In each one, he's aggressive about solving them. And that's the secret. We've adapted to decades of decline. We've overlooked problems we knew weren't going to go away. We let people fall through the cracks. It was cultural triage. Every institution in America has compromised on its core mission. It's been hell in this country, and hell isn't a place, it's been a direction. And Bessent sees it too. The truth, he says, is that for too long, America had been asleep. We mistook comfort for strength. We treated consumption as a measure of prosperity. It didn't matter whether factories went dark in Michigan, Ohio, or Pennsylvania. We assumed the invisible hand would correct vulnerabilities that too few in public life had the courage to confront. The experts said the invisible hand would solve all the problems. It'll fix everything, they said. Let Wall Street sell our industry to China. Let China take all of our manufacturing. The magic of the marketplace will make it all right. But what's the invisible hand except the one in your pocket stealing your money and your future? We let our country fall into total disrepair. Entire towns and cities are now ghost towns. Zombies on meth walk the streets of formerly thriving industrial centers, whether it's New York or Los Angeles or throughout the Midwest. We aren't going to solve this problem with good intentions. It has to be aggressive. It has to be confrontational when necessary. And most importantly, it has to be committed to solving the hard problems. This is how President Trump is resurrecting the very heart and soul of our civilization. Think of it in terms of the gospel. I came to send fire on the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. Luke 12:49. This isn't the Sermon on the Mount. This is what you do once you've heard the Sermon on the Mount. This is the fire of the Spirit of truth, and it's meant to be spread. We can't sit back and hope it works. We have to get outside the cave and start building. President Trump has thrown the entire game with China out the window. The free traders at the Chamber of Commerce, who sold our nation down that yellow river, are now isolated for their treason. The wolves in China, who wanted to replace the United States, now face the stark economic reality that the dollar-based system isn't going anywhere. And the U.S. hawks, who want a war with China, or a new Cold War with China, are now also on ice. President Trump knows this D.C. game doesn't solve problems, it creates them. Our children don't need to face another Cold War. What they need is a stable world with a growing industrial nation. And Secretary of War Pete Hegseth sees it now too. He said it at the Shangri-La conference last week. President Trump and President Xi engaged in direct discussions in Beijing. I bore witness to hours of candid conversations. It was truly historic. They agreed the United States and China should build a constructive relationship based on fairness and reciprocity. President Trump is setting the tone for the 21st century, and his entire cabinet and the entire leadership of China were witness to it. He doesn't care what the bureaucrats think. He knows we don't have that luxury. We either move hard and fast, or we will be eaten alive by the cave dwellers. And this is changing American culture, because it doesn't just hang on President Trump, it ultimately hangs on us. Because a culture is shaped by the day-to-day, the commitment to solve problems on every level. This is the American system. This is what self-government means, whether at the highest level of global finance or in a small Midwestern town. Trade Rep Jamison Greer gets it. He said it to the entire world of central bankers. He wrote an essay and concluded this way, quote, "We don't have time to wait. The United States is taking bold action to lay the foundation for an international economic system grounded in fairness and resilience. As the global economy changes, so too must the economics profession. Economists may be dismal scientists, but they have no reason to live with their heads in the sand. Academics just can't see the real power in play. They've trained themselves not to. They've been content to describe the shadows. But we can see it. We can see the power to create, the potential the MAGA revolution has unleashed. Consider the College of St. Joseph the Worker, a small college in Steubenville, Ohio, a town that was gutted by free trade and the China effect. This college has thrown out the academic playbook. They're now providing a Catholic liberal arts degree on top of a trade certificate in one of the 4 trades. Every student will develop a skill set that's already building a new campus from old buildings in the Steubenville downtown. This is the American way. From revolutions in foreign policy to rebuilding small towns, building our nation from the ground up, one stone at a time where necessary. This is how America was born 250 years ago. And it's a profound history. The real world outside the cave requires the pursuit of higher principles. This is what has shaped America, and it's a culture we're bringing back to life. As historian Robert Ingram has documented in the Substack link below, when the British marched on Lexington in April of 1775, the men waiting for them on the green at 2 in the morning weren't professional soldiers. They were farmers, and they were there because their pastor, the Reverend Jonas Clark, led them there. When John Hancock, the famous John Hancock, asked Clark whether the people of Lexington would actually fight, Clark said this, "They would fight, and if need be, die, under the shadow of the house of God." By daybreak, 8 of them lay dead on Lexington Green. Every one of them was a member of Clark's congregation, and standing over his own dead, Clark said this, "From this day will be dated the liberty of the world." This is what the MAGA revolution is today. It's not kinetic, but it's built on the same devotion. And it wasn't just Lexington. On January 21st, 1776, in Woodstock, Virginia, the Reverend Peter Muhlenberg preached from Ecclesiastes, the famous verse, "To everything there is a season." But when he reached a time of war, he tore off his clerical robe to reveal a Continental Army uniform underneath. The drums rolled outside the church doors. Within the hour, 300 men had enlisted. He marched out the next morning with 3 companies and rose to a major general. The British soon had a name for these men. They called them the Black Regiment, after the black robes the ministers wore. But these weren't just preachers. They were citizens. They were leaders. These preachers were more effective at raising an army than any politician or celebrity in history, because they weren't selling a war. They were spreading a fire of freedom and truth. In September 1775, Benedict Arnold's army prepared to march north to invade Canada. As they gathered supplies in Massachusetts, the soldiers asked permission to visit a tomb in the basement of a small church in Newburyport, Massachusetts. It wasn't the tomb of a political leader or a military hero. It was the tomb of a poor preacher named George Whitefield. Whitefield could preach 8 sermons in a day in 8 different towns to over 50,000 people, and he could do it twice on Sunday. Between 1739 and 1770, more than 80% of every person living in the American colonies had heard him preach with their own ears. He brought the good news of freedom to every village and town in America because their rights came not from kings, but from God alone. So when these young soldiers got to the basement of the church and opened his coffin, each one then cut a small piece of cloth from what remained of his burial clothes. These soldiers, with barely a hair on their chin, carried those cuts of cloth in their boots and in the linings of their hats on one of the most brutal marches of the war. These weren't superstitious men. They were just carrying the fire of America with them, because Whitefield was the spark. The men who marched into battle in 1775 were the figurative sons of Whitefield, chanting as they went, "No king but King Jesus." That's the deeper Trump effect. Not because Trump is a preacher, not because this spirit is a religious question. It's a universal one. Do we have the courage to march into the undiscovered country? For the first time in 50 years, Americans are once again doing what those farmers and pastors did, refusing to manage the decline, refusing to follow the rules they were told they had to follow. Instead, we're picking up whatever's in front of us, and we're rebuilding our nation from the ground up. Because this fire isn't a feeling, it's a direction upwards towards truth. It spreads from one person to the next until our nation is secure. The Black Regiment didn't wait for permission, neither did President Trump, and neither will we. And that's your overview. Hit like, subscribe, and smash the bell. Help me get this to 500,000 strong. And thanks for watching.
Mike sums up my philosophy very accurately with facts. I get more into the spiritual awakening side of things with my years of Toltec and meditation courses and studying ancient metaphysics and Toltec. Yeah, absolutely. Spent like 30,000 on some of those courses, and I share a lot of that with my videos, as you followers have already recognized that I'm all about waking up the power within and empowering people to stand up and make the most of themselves. Make the most of themselves. So with that in mind, I thank you all for taking the time to watch my videos and get involved. And by 2030, it'll be our agenda that will be taking place. It won't be the globalist nonsense, because the fall of the cabal is finished. The 4 cornerstones have all been taken down, and now it's the monetary system is one of the last ones. Does that mean that the war is over? No, that doesn't mean the war is over. There's still lots to do. But individual nation states across the whole Earth realm are starting to pool their resources together and realize that we all have to be producers. We have to create. That's part of the creative process of why we're here in this world, is to play our part and be co-creators with that universal spark of the divine that's deep inside each and every one of us. Each and every one of us. So join my channel. I share a little bit of Toltec and spirituality and inspiration with most of my videos. I even have a playlist that needs a little bit more of my attention right now called Timeless Treasures. And all of those videos are going to be under, I'm going to try to keep them around 10 minutes tops. And that way, and they're only going to be inspirational, motivational, empowerment talks, because that's why I call them timeless treasures. They're going to be valuable in 15 years. So maybe even 17 years. Who knows? So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me in my videos. And I really appreciate those who have subscribed to my channel, subscribed to my Telegram channel, and my Facebook, Tribalism Twisted Lightworker channel. All the links to how to follow me and keep up with what's going on, because I'm going to be doing some online training sometime in the not too distant future. And you'll want to know about that, and I'm only going to be able to advertise that in my social media platforms like Telegram and Facebook. So check out those channels and join them and watch what I share there. A big thank you from the bottom of my heart for all those people who have bought me coffee, and the few people who are now subscribing to my channel on a monthly basis. Oh my God, you have no idea how required it is in my life right now, because I've donated most of my time, donated most of my time for the last 11 years, 10 years to doing what I'm doing. Doing what I'm doing right now, talking to you, reaching out, hoping to touch your heart, hoping to touch your inspirational buttons inside. Touch your some of the times I come up with the weirdest way of expressing myself. So anyway, I really love you guys, and I appreciate the followers and the coffees, and definitely appreciate those who have subscribed as a monthly subscriber. Those little donations of $3 to $10 a month is just, it's a big blessing for my life, and I appreciate you for putting your trust and hope in me and following me, and hopefully I get you a laugh or two now and then, as well as encourage you to become more yourself. And with that, I'm going to cut this off right now and wish you and yours peace profound.